1989. And in 1989, one of the worst incidents that happened was in Sindh, when 3 journalists had been killed, you know. And till this day, their case has never been, proceeded, nor their assailants were arrested. One of the journalists was killed in Khairpur, and 2 other journalists were killed in Larkana at that time. Generally, it was believed that it could be ethnic oriented because the ethnic issue was pretty hot in those years. And after that, particularly after 9/11, situation started getting worse. And in post 9/11, the major case which hit the headline world over was Daniel Pearl case. He was kidnapped in February 2002. And on January 23rd, 2002, then his body was found in a compound. Headless body was found in a compound in the outskirts of Karachi, and that made that case internationally important because he was the Wall Street Journal correspondent of South Asia covering. So I covered that case for almost 20 years. And you can imagine that a case prolongs for so long, although in the initial stages, the journalist, the trial conducted and completed within months, and that was the first case of its kind, which really where assailants were also arrested, prosecuted, and punished. And there's a very interesting aspect last year when they were finally acquitted by the Supreme Court because of the lack of prosecution. None of them has so far been formally released. Although there are no charges against them, they have been living in a jail compound in a residential area, but in a jail compound. They can't go, their families can come and visit them. So that's one specific case which, one way or the other, ultimately reached to its conclusion. The pressure on the family. I just quoted a case where a wife, took courage and identified the people who had killed her, kidnapped her, and killed her husband. She herself had been killed. So there's a sense of insecurity among the journalists how to report, how to cover such events, when neither they have that kind of a safety belt, that kind of a support from their own media organizations. They don't have any insurance cover. That if they go to, for instance, I've been working for AFP for many years, so if I go to Afghanistan to cover an event, I'll be $1 million insured journalist. Here there's no such concept. Those journalists who are working in conflict areas, those journalists who are working in those difficult environments, whether in Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in Sindh, 90% of those journalists are not regular employee of their organizations. Some of them work on part-time basis. They hardly get any, insurance cover. They hardly get proper salaries. So in that environment, they are doing a remarkable job. You know, if they come out with the stories, such as stories, do you know, that media organizations all, you know,
University course, which we're not going to do today. But just to be clear, when we're talking about human rights, we're talking about much more than just arbitrary detention or torture or the civil and political rights.